So my content didn't ruffle some feathers, and all I'm doing is pointing out the truth. I'm not personally attacking these fighters because I don't really know these fighters like that, but I'm putting out the truth, and the truth tends to ruffle some feathers. So a particular anti-black boxing fan is constantly responding to my videos when he does not have to. It doesn't make any sense for him to get so emotional over my content, right? It makes absolutely no sense. But it's very comical when you have people here in this space that targets people, that literally targets people. And then they claim that these people that they target, that they're racially driven. These guys are just bad people. They're bad for boxing. They're bad because they want to accept Inoue as being pound for pound. Any critique or any criticism towards any non-BA, non-FBA foreign fighter is a form of hatred. These FBA people, these BA people, they're hateful. They criticize a foreigner, they criticize a non-BA or non-FBA, they're hateful. It's interesting. And I say to those people pushing out that type of nonsense, you are emotionally and very weak. You have never caught me hunting down channels to defend Devin Haney or Floyd Mayweather or Ward or Wilder's honor. I don't need to do that. And I don't have to do that. It's crazy because when you look at this community, a lot of these channels who are constantly talking about my channel, the LDBC, they have no issue with allowing the FBA or so-called BA fighter receiving disrespect every day, because that's who the most disrespected fighters are. It's the Black American or the FBA fighter. They're the most hated and the most disrespected. And what I've done, with this small channel that I now have, is put out the truth. The standards are different. When it comes to these fighters, the standards are different. And I'm not making long videos. I'm not making hour lives. I'm not, I'm not even trying too hard. I'm not even putting a lot of effort into exposing the truth. And you see the impact with my content that I effortlessly do. All I'm doing is telling the truth. When it comes to boxing fans, they hold certain fighters to a certain standard. And that's all what I'm doing. I'm pointing out the truth. FBA or so-called BA fighter are not judged based on belts. They are judged based on the competition that they fight. Resume matters when it comes to the FBA or so-called BA fighter. Resume matters. It matters the most. If these FBA fighters beat decent opponents, decent isn't good enough. Hell, good isn't good enough. A champion sometimes ain't even good enough. When you look at Tank Davis's resume, he doesn't have a bad resume. He doesn't. His resume isn't filled with stars, right? Fighters that have a lot of name recognition. No. His resume is filled with solid opponents. Frank Martin, good opponent, really good opponent. He's beaten a lot of champions, something that Inoue is credit for. Inoue's beaten all these champions Inoue's beaten. But I find it very interesting that all those champions that Inoue has beaten hasn't gotten any coverage from any of these so-called Inoue fans here in this community. But a lot of those fighters that Tank beat got a lot of coverage from the same fans that are pro Inoue. That's the truth that I've been telling. But somehow I'm hateful for pointing out the truth. I'm racially motivated for pointing out the truth. But meanwhile, you have a lot of content creators here in this space right now as I speak that builds their platform off of tearing down FBA or so-called BA fighters. I cannot figure out the life of me why BDA's platform has never been under fire. That dude don't even talk about all the fighters, right? Or enough fighters, something that we've been accused for, right? The black boxing community, we were told that you guys don't know anything about boxing because you only support black fighters. But when you go to BDA's platform, all what they talk about is Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, Tank Davis, and Shakur and Devin. That's all who they talk about, and they tear them down. Every live, they are dragging these FBA or so-called BA fighters, and that platform is left completely alone. And they're not criticizing these fighters. They are literally personally attacking these fighters, personally calling them like B words, the N word with the ER, promoting violence, talking about lynching. You ain't never heard me speak that language. You have never heard me, make it personal with these fighters that I do not support. What I'm simply doing is saying, hey, you guys are exposing yourselves by, these ridiculous standards. You say that you say that Inoue is pound for pound, but don't talk about his resume and refuse to break down his resume. Because I've never seen any of these so-called Inoue fans talk about, or at least dedicate a full day creating content about the opponents that Inoue's faced. But they don't have a problem with doing the same with fighters like Tank Davis, with fighters like Devin Haney, with fighters like Deontay Wilder, with fighters like Terrence Crawford. Not too long ago, Terrence Crawford's resume was under fire. Before Terrence Crawford whooped on Canelo Alvarez, what was the conversation before that fight? Terrence Crawford's resume. His resume was the conversation. Now that I'm looking at Inoue the same way that these fans looked at Crawford, I'm the problem. Interesting. Very interesting. Even though Crawford, in my opinion, before he fought Canelo, had a better resume than Inoue, but Crawford's resume was under fire. And that proves everything that I've been saying. Fighters are held to a different standard based on race. The Inoues of the world, they can collect belts. They can beat unknown champions. They can beat guys that no one gives a F about. They can do all the things that boxing fans would never, ever give a FBA or so-called BA fighters for doing. It's just not going to happen. Inoue can do the bare minimum, and still receive tons of credit. The FBA fighter cannot do the bare minimum. And I keep going back to this. When Devin Haney became the WBC champion, the junior welterweight WBC champion, and all what he did was entertain a potential fight between him and the WBC welterweight champion, Mario Barrios. The amount of criticism that Devin Haney came under for just simply suggesting a potential fight between him and the WBC long-reigning welterweight champion, Mario Barrios. He was racially attacked. Boxing fans literally came for his neck because they felt that Mario Barrios was not good enough for Devin. They thought that they figured that Devin Haney is going to get his hands on a world title because Mario Barrios isn't a good enough opponent for Devin. So they didn't want Devin to get his hands on a world title easy. They wanted Devin to have to go through the toughest challenge for him to get his hands on a world title. So to me, what I took away from that was that they want the FBA fighter, only the FBA fighter, to fight competition. If they didn't allow Devin to entertain a matchup between him and Mario Barrios, that right there is basically saying that they want the FBA fighter to only take on tough competition, especially if there's a world title on the line. Meanwhile, Inoue just fought Ivan Picasio, a week mandatory, and he's being paraded around like he's the best fighter on the planet because of his win over someone that nobody gave a F about. The only reason why Ivan Bekasian was now a conversation, that's because he was a former opponent of Inoue. But prior to him facing Inoue, nobody, and I mean nobody, was talking about Ivan Bekasian. They don't care about these foreign fighters' resume. They don't. They don't care if the foreign fighter ever fights competition. They prefer them not to fight competition. But when it comes to the FBA fighter, when it comes to the so-called BA fighter, competition is important. Competition is what these fans rather have these FBA or so-called BA fighter face consistently. But the anti-black boxing fan, he want to say that black folks are racist, right? We're racist, right? But you don't ever hear us call Inoue trash, say that Inoue's a bum, say that Inoue is not a good fighter. You don't ever hear us say these things. You don't ever hear us personally attacking Inoue the way that the BDAs of the world do to FBA or so-called BA fighters. The problem is that when the truth is being told, and it's to the point where a lot of people is listening to the truth, and it makes them question the decisions, right? Like ranking Inoue pound for pound, then it becomes a problem. Then it backs these racist people back into a corner because they don't want fighters like a Devin, Terrence Crawford, Shakur, or any FBA fighter or so-called BA fighter to be seen by the world as being the best fighter in the sport of boxing. Because it's a great representation on just how great the FBA or so-called BA athletes are. And that's what kills these racist individuals. They're so jealous, they envy that, they hate that. And so what they do is that they wait for the sport of boxing, the machine, to find somebody that they can push to the public and say, hey, this is your pound for pound king right here. Not that black fighter, and especially not that black fighter. Even though that black fighter over there has done way more, even though that black fighter over there has beaten way better competition, you foreign are going to represent boxing. And all these fans jump ship. The same thing they did with Roman Gonzalez. Roman Gonzalez got discovered. Make that make sense. He got discovered. Okay? In boxing, you know, fighters work hard to become a world champion. Fighters work hard to be put in position to fight for a world title. Fighters work hard to be in position to even be seen as one of the best fighters in the sport of boxing. Roman Gonzalez got discovered while having over 40 plus fights. If he worked hard, if he was doing all these great things, he wouldn't have needed to be discovered. And that's a fact.